there was a buzz that we felt. It was a revolutionary time to be living, and just like Wordsworth's poem on the French Revolution, bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, and to be young was very heaven.
For the new wave of Thatcherites, a golden age had arrived. Their leader was in charge, their opposition in tatters. So just what did the British people expect from the Conservative Party? In 1983, there was little evidence of the radical change to come.
Thatcherism, I think, began to enter into the language in the early 80s. So the only question was, what would Thatcherism be like? And I have to say, in 83, I still think that was something of an unknown quantity.
Margaret Thatcher didn't so much have an ideology as a series of instincts. And the instincts were, first, that the state should do less and the individual should do more. Secondly, that the state should spend less so the individual could spend more. And thirdly, that the state should own less so the individual could own more. And those are the instincts that guided her right through her 11 years as Prime Minister.
A new buzzword entered the national vocabulary: privatization.
Privatization was one of these very rare occasions when a genuinely new policy was put in place. This was something that had never been done before, not merely in this country, it had never been done anywhere in the world.
The plan was so radical that other members of the Conservative Party thought the Thatcherites were dangerous fanatics.
When we started putting the idea forward, there were a lot of Conservatives opposed to it. You know, it's a natural monopoly. No one will want to buy the shares. There'll be strikes. Why go into all this agony and trouble? I was looked upon as a lunatic. I was sort of almost put in a darkened room to sort of relax and be quiet for a bit, because this was absurd. This was an absolutely absurd thing to do.
On the 12th of April 1984, Parliament made it possible for the people of the United Kingdom to own British Telecom shares. That means not just...
51% of BT was put up for sale. 3 billion shares.
Published in November.
Much to the government's relief, applications flooded in. But would the city agree? On the morning of the 3rd of December 1984, BT shares were offered for sale at 130 pence each. That night, they closed at 173 pence each, a profit of 30% in one day.
They've scrambled for stock, and the criticism from Labour was not, it's been a flop. The criticism from Labour was, the share price has gone up, you therefore sold it too cheaply. They don't know how relieved we were to sell it at all.
The successful sale of British Telecom raised £3.7 billion for the Treasury. It gave Thatcherites a taste for more. Electricity, gas, airlines. Few national assets were out of bounds.
From France to the Philippines, from Jamaica to Japan, from Malaysia to Mexico, from Sri Lanka to Singapore, privatization is on the move.
Something new had been born. Its name was popular capitalism.
Popular capitalism is nothing less than a crusade to enfranchise the many in the economic life of the nation. We Conservatives are returning power to the people. That is the way to one nation, one people.
When Mrs. Thatcher came to power in 1979, only 7% of the population owned shares. By 1990, it was 25%. Britain would never be the same again.
Having a nation of small shareholders was an important part of our vision because we wanted people to understand capitalism. And, when I was a youngster in the 50s and 60s, we still had the idea that capitalists were people who went around in top hats and fur-collared overcoats and grinding the faces of the poor and the workers. And that was the sort of Dickensian image of 19th century capitalism, which was still being taught in schools in those days.